that sound okay?
Sounds great.
All right. All right. Welcome everyone to our Thursday Thrive service for CSL, Inner Journey CSL. It is July the 6th. We hope everyone had a nice 4th of July holiday. Yes, it's been a busy week, busy time. Our title tonight is How Things Come to Me. So I'm going to talk about how things show up in my life spontaneously based on our practice of science of mind. So, and I will begin with treatment to start our session. As I sit and I breathe, I recognize that this space right where I am, feels good. Come together for this meeting tonight for our Thursday Thrive. In the presence of love and light and oneness. And I recognize that what I feel is that God consciousness and that energy of the God presence, the one that is right here. And I know it is everywhere because there is no separation, no difference. And what is so exciting is that as we come together for this meeting tonight to discuss how God shows up in my life, I know it shows up in everybody's life. And how do they recognize it? And how do they work with that? And so I know that the information that comes tonight is fun and it is good and it is educational and it is informative and it is interesting to learn and to hear from others how this process works. And so I'm grateful to know that it is here and it is done already. And I say yes to each person here, to each person within our group, even though in their absence they're not able to be here physically. But I know that even as they watch this video, there is that information that wells up within them also to remember how things come and the good of that. And so I just say yes, and I let it be. I let this begin. And so it is.
So it is.
So the topic of this, how things come to me. I normally spend a number of days picking a topic and reading and doing some research and writing some things out. And I get pretty anal about it and pretty linear about it. But I was cutting the grass the other day. When you're doing things that are kind of maybe mundane and your mind is wandering, man, all kinds of explosive stuff comes up in your mind. And those are times I wish that there was a recording in my brain that could, record some of these things that come up. But I thought, what a wonderful thing to talk about, because what came up into my head was how some events in my life have played out recently and information that's come to me. And so what has been difficult for me a lot is that as I write talks, and even my speeches for another club, it's very difficult for me to get personal. And when we get personal and intimate in our stories, that actually is some things that kind of intrigue people and get people, people want to hear more about those things in your life. And so I come totally open tonight to this little discussion. The only thing I had was a little tiny piece of paper with a receipt on one side from the food site. And it's just my title, and to start with a personal story about my brothers. So to let you know, I have a twin brother, some know, some don't, and he has recently moved in with me. He lived with our younger brother for a long time because he has Alzheimer's. And so he's just on that path of getting started with, some memory things. Well, my younger brother I'm the only one in my family that thinks of life the way we do in science of mind, in a spiritual context, and that there's oneness, and that there's even this higher infinite intelligence that we can use for our good and, change your thoughts, change your life, all those things. I'm the only person in my life, in my family, that thinks that way. And so it's how I live, right? Been doing this for 20 years. It's how we live. My younger brother is very straightforward, tangible, got to touch it, I'm like, and he started on a process last fall looking for support and a living arrangement for our brother. And, he went through, I was going to say went to the phone book. There are no phone books. He went to the internet and tried to look up some places, to ask about housing. He went through the internet and looked up places, in Baltimore and agencies. And he went through the internet looking for and he couldn't get any support. He couldn't get any help. He hit all kinds of roadblocks, and I felt real bad. And I showed up one day well, actually, I'd had a couple phone calls. He told me he'd been trying to find some things, and he was just not having any luck, and couldn't get anybody on the phone to really be to be supportive and give direction. I made one phone call. And what did I do before that phone call? I sat back and I said, here's the path. Here's what I would like to see happen. And I have a printed out thing on my wall that says, there's no obstacle to the pathway of truth. And I look at that a lot. I'll get phrases, in my head, and I print them out in bold, giant print, and then I put them on the wall. There's no obstacle to the pathway of truth. And so if I really trust that and trust this process, then there's no obstacle to the truth of support and help that our family can get for our brother. I made one phone call. I looked up some things online, and one of the things that our other younger brother was concerned about was how easy it is for someone to cry elder abuse and what happens when you do that, and what are the guidelines. And that was one of the things he was concerned about. And I went to one website, and then I looked at another website, and then I looked up, what is elder abuse and how do they define that in Baltimore? And there was a list of offices and phone numbers, and I just kind of went, and I picked a number. And I spoke with a woman that I don't know what else to call her, but an angel who just happened to pick up the phone that day, because I could never find her number again. It was one of those kind of deals. And she gave me so much information, and she gave me phone numbers on how to start, what to do, how to get in the system, and how to make it work. So I got things all lined up, and I made a trip out to Baltimore to be with both of my brothers. So I approached my younger brother and I said, here's what I found, and I got this and this and this, and you've got this, we got the evaluation set up, and they got to come to the house, and this, and then we go here, and then we go here. And he got angry. I said, why are you angry? And he said, I have been trying for 6 months and I haven't gotten anywhere. And how can you just walk in here and you've got all this information? And how did I tell him? How do you tell somebody? Well, I did a prayer. And I asked for it to show up because I know that's what we needed. That's what I wanted. And so I didn't have the words to say that, but I did say to him that was true. I said, you opened the door. You made all those first phone calls. And I probably would have made all those wrong phone calls too. Not really sure, but he kind of got the ball rolling. Right. But I made one phone call and I got everything I needed. So it was an interesting thing. So how often does that happen in our life? And that was the biggest thing that came into my mind, because that's the most recent. So now I have invited my brother Brad to come here and live with me. And I just introduced him to Sue Ellen. He popped his head in. And so I've said that prayer again, because we're starting all over now, because I've invited him to a different, come to here in Texas, in a different state. And so we're basically starting all over again, unfortunately. There are some things that are different. But again, that shouldn't be an issue, because there are no obstacles in the pathway to truth. And it is the truth that comes through in support and wholeness for every individual, right? And we have that support. So that's where I need to put that's where I am putting my head again in that. And so I sat back and I kind of looked, now where else in my life? I believe it has helped with another family member I have who's going through some medical things, because as I helped them and as I learned about it, it was, we want to find the right process and the right person and the right support. I constantly call in harmony. I think for me, sometimes you can get so confused in the world of medicine and doctors and moving around, no matter what the condition is for that person. And so I want to start my day with that promise, that intention, that there's a harmony of how we work our day in doing the appointments and doing the processes and all the things that are going on. And not only that, but an air of compassion. And what was the other thing I had? There were three things. It was harmony, compassion, and kindness. That was the one, kindness. And so there's always that coming, at least from me, so that I can meet that where I go during the day and the pathway that I go, the path that I go for what I want. And, it's an interesting time right now. Things feel busy and congested. And I'm having something go on right now. It's like for the last 4 or 5 days, I cannot remember a span of time where I've had so many unexpected things happen and come up. And plans having to be changed or delayed, and things I would have never expected. And I sat today, I stood today walking around kind of like in a circle, like, what the heck is going on? And I just can't remember, but it's like, okay, let's just calm this down. And I realized over the past couple days that as things may have become disharmonious, in one moment or the next, it's like, wait a minute, what's in my mind? I find it interesting that I've been able to pull myself back, because the premise of this is, how do things come to me and how am I using what I have learned in Science of Mind to change my life? And so I've been able to pull myself back and say, wait a minute, what's in my mind and in my consciousness? That's bringing that, because I don't want to separate what's happening out there from me, because that's not what I believe. That's what I've been taught. And I find myself in that place because I'm human, but it's not really what I believe. So I can pull that back. And I recognize that there are people and events. I think today I hit a point where I hit a frustration point, and it was like, okay, I love their soul, but I'm not crazy about the personality. And I know I'm one with them.
I like that.
So let that be, that's the reality. I love their soul because we're one, but I'm not crazy about their personality. Oh, and actually, once I said that, it made me laugh and it brought a smile to my face. It didn't ease all of the frustration, but I thought that's kind of funny, because that's the truth, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and maybe it's, I'm not crazy about their personality at this moment.
At this moment,
because it could be that their personality, when they're not under whatever XYZ stress they're under, their personality could be just fine.
Yeah, and very true, Sue Ellen. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. I've just had weird things. I went to the dentist this morning, was supposed to be a 20-minute appointment. I left 5 hours later. Yeah, how's that? She goes, you know what? Let me take care of that thing now. I got time. Well, she didn't tell me how much time it would take. It took 5 hours. So, and I, with my face drooping, I said, will this be done by 6 o'clock? Yes, it is. It's done. I can talk. So, oh man, but just things that I just quirky stuff all week long. It's been like that. But anyway, Would you like to share, are there moments and times where you have said that prayer and had something work so well for you? There are spontaneous things that happen, and then there are things that they play out over a period of time, and you recognize that that's been set up for you. Do you have times like that? Good.
Like you, I mean, as I go through my daily life, and it's so full, I create such a full life for myself, and I'm okay with that. I kind of like it. I think that's my personality. A lot of different things. I like you. I do have my humanness.
Yeah.
Where I have to stop, check myself, and say, what's on my mind right now? And then pull myself back, remind myself, and wrap myself in love. And then bring forth the compassion, the kindness, and the love. And when I do that, miracles happen. And
Yeah.
they always do. Even just these little teeny tiny little things. And in some cases, big things, right? Like a big thing is a miracle of the beautiful place where my both lovers my both brothers have moved to. It's just a beautiful place for them, completely unexpected. However, we all held the knowing of that, right? Me in a different way than they did, although my younger brother has a strong faith and strong belief in God, and believes in miracles of things that are brought forth by the higher power. So anyway, so your expression of there is no obstacle to the pathway of truth, that's beautiful. There is no obstacle, none whatsoever. In fact, for me, when I pause and I relax and I do as I said, where I, check in on what's in my mind and shift it to one of peace and love. And I mean that sincerely. These are not trite words to me. These are real words to me that evoke very deep feelings, strong feelings inside me, which, as we all know, when you have that feeling behind your knowing, it's very, very powerful. There is no obstacle, none whatsoever. In fact, there's clarity and there's manifestation. There's constant demonstration and just little God things everywhere. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Love it. But that's not to say I don't have hard times. I have hard times. Just this morning, I was whining and complaining and bitching and moaning, my little human nature coming out. And I said, Diane, if you keep thinking that, that's what you're going to create. So, I adjust. Anyway, and it's interesting you brought up elder abuse. A dear friend of mine, this was on the 4th of July. I just came back to Colorado, and I have some core buddies that I've known since the early 90s. We were blessed to all get together, and celebrate the whole day from 9 a.m. in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, just with a small, great community with their small little parade and bands. And in the course of that, we had, little snippets of side conversations that were just, deep conversations in some cases. And when the husband of, well, he's a dear friend of mine, was talking about a situation with his dad back east, where his father I mean, on the surface, it seems like he was seduced by a younger woman, and in any event, the whole family. I mean, the father has assigned her and given her complete power of attorney. So, you know, I'm not yet sure. So he divulged this to me, and in the past, we've had some pretty deep spiritual conversations. I need to meditate on that and ask God for guidance on how to support my friend Bob with this particular, from his perspective, a situation of real elder abuse. It's real.
Yeah.
It made me think about my mom. You know, my family, thanks to my older brother, he's taking care of my mother. But that elder abuse situation is scary. I know here in Colorado Springs, we have, because of all the volunteer work I do, you know, we have, as you said, organizations and entities that help with that, advise with that. And but anyway, I can just keep going. I appreciate your little snippets, that quote, how in life you can love people's souls, but not be crazy about their personality in the moment. That would be kind of what I probably feel about myself too sometimes.
I was just gonna say that. Sometimes I'm not crazy about my own personality, you know,
Oh my gosh.
just,
Yeah.
just not perfect.
That hit the spot so well this morning when that came to my head. Oh boy.
I can always level things. I can when I come from a place of love.
Mhm.
And then I find myself, and you all know me, my self-worthiness issues that I've had. I first have to, like I say, envelop myself in that love, remind myself, and then spread it outward. And the light always comes. It always comes. And it's
Yeah.
just beautiful. I cry sometimes. I mean, it's just incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. A couple of days ago, I set goals out there for each month. And the goal I had for June was to get in touch with all of my grandchildren. Well, the 4 that are in Florida, I'm in touch with pretty often anyway. And so I kind of let that go and just let it ride all June long. And then we're rolling into July. On the 30th of June, I'm going, you should do something. So I sat down on July 1, and it wasn't July, it wasn't June. And I sent a text message to everybody that I had a phone number for, which was all of them but one. I have one that I have no phone number for. And I'm sure I can get that one, but I didn't do that. And I got 4 responses. And it's like, oh, wow. And so now I have a couple of them that we're continuing to correspond, a day or so. It's like one of my grandsons is in Baghdad. And so he sends me a text message in the middle of the night and I get it in the morning and I respond and he's still up. And so then, we trade 1 or 2 back and forth, and then, he'll disappear, go to bed, and I'll do my day. And when I get up the next morning, there's another message. So that's been kind of cool. And I was talking with one who just had a baby. This is her 4th, and she has 3 boys, and this was a girl. So she's excited. This baby was born in May, I believe. End of May, 1st of June. I don't remember exactly. Baby Joyce. And she said, we're coming to Oklahoma City this weekend. We'll have to stop by and see you. And I'm going, okay, that sounds good. And then the next thing I know, I get a text message from her dad, who was the one that was stationed in South Korea, is now home. Goes, yeah, we're going to be we're going to be there over the weekend. Can we come by? What works for you? So they're coming by tomorrow night.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. Okay. You know, so that piece of, okay, today's the day, even though it's not June anymore, for me to send this message out. And I did and got all these responses. That's really cool. So now I'm going to have to get the numbers of the others so that I can keep in touch or
A
get
little bit of love, right?
Yes.
Reached out with a little bit of love and luck.
Mhm. Yep.
Isn't that lovely?
It is. It is lovely.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's
Very cool.
very cool. So I love your title, How Things Come to Me. And it's through love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And also through that knowing, thank you for that, Diane, because that is true, because in my mind, God is the avenue of love and God is love.
Mhm.
And love is everything. God is everything. And I've got this thing in my head from, reading recently about God consciousness, because we always hear about Christ consciousness, and there's even the chapter in the Science of Mind of Christ consciousness and Jesus, but here's this idea of God consciousness that is the all and everything. And so if we are filled with God consciousness, and that is the mind with which I think, and that is the air and the space around us, it's not just, let's see, I was going to say it's not just God, but there is this God consciousness that is the all wisdom and omniscience of everything.
Mhm.
So that's become one of my catchphrases too. And I believe that that is part of that. Is process the right word? I'm even thinking and making up this as we kind of sit and go deeper into this conversation, but that's the process that I believe that kind of carries me
Mhm.
through that. I have a thing that I printed out, and I don't remember where I got this because it's very old and it's up on my board here. And it says, God is the light in which I see. God is the mind with which I think. God is the love in which I forgive. God is the strength in which I trust. There's nothing to fear. And so, and I don't remember where I got that from. So the one that, well, I use a lot, I use different parts of that, when things are kind of moving in my life. And God is the mind with which I think. I use probably more than anything else. And because I think of it in terms that, we're created from that God mind anyway. And so, and God is in everything that it creates, and God is right here. So God is the mind with which I think. And so even though I've been created, and when Sue Ellen saw me kind of doing my treatment for myself, I didn't know she was, before we got started, part of that is God is the mind with which I think, because God created everything. It's all here in the presence. God is within everything that it creates. So it is the mind with which I think. And even though it's created me as a personality, I use that God mind to be the best of that person that I can be, and the most that I can be, and the highest that I can be. So I stay open always to recognize that it's not just me, and I'm never alone.
And that's what that means to you?
In any of that. And that's what that means to me.
It's not just you. You're not alone. And it's not just your mind thinking, it's a bigger mind of unlimited possibilities. Is that kind of what you're thinking when you say God is the mind with which I think?
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
means you're not alone, and it's expansive. It's not just your small mind, it's the big mind.
Yeah. And it's that universal mind that boy, what if you can open yourself up? And I think that it's not just my mind. There's a universal mind that's all encompassing that I can use to look at this situation.
I see.
And not just this limited little pea brain that sits up in there, that's tangible, but there's this whole other thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I remember as I reflect back in life, decades and decades ago, where I used to think it was just me, only me. my mind, I was the one thinking, and only that was it, until I
Yeah.
discovered Science of Mind in the early 2000s, where it's not just me, and how freeing that felt, that I could co-create, you know, and I could receive, if I were open to it,
Yeah.
ideas, creation, thought,
Mhm.
not just me.
Right.
That was really, that was a big burden, right?
Yep.
I wasn't self-centered. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought, because the God that I knew earlier in my life was a judging God, was not a God I felt I could partner with.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Sue Ellen?
Mhm. Oh,
Uh,
I was. Would you take a picture of that on your phone and send me the picture?
I will. Yes, I
Thank you.
will.
What's interesting is in Arkansas, I am around people that are very strong in faith, largely more traditional faith. I don't want to derail the conversation here, but if I may just make this one observation. They talk a lot about Jesus, not God.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's why when I heard this phrase, God consciousness is everywhere, and the importance of recognizing it. But it doesn't take away from what the Christ consciousness is. It's just there's also God consciousness. And I live in the Bible Belt down here in the Baptist Belt, and all these big giant mega churches. My gosh! And the police even direct traffic on Sundays. You can't get to the grocery store because of the churches, and that's what my tax dollars are going to. But I think about and everybody's where they need to be, right? In their right presence and their right understanding of all of that. But I'm happy that I have learned I have this connection, and that there's not an intermediary, and I don't have to beg and ask for something. I can remember back in let's see, if I put a date on it, it would have been somewhere in the 80s. One day I was so distraught about an event that was going on in the house. And I went in the bedroom and I shut the door, and on my wall, I had hanging a picture of Jesus. It was a very nice picture, the way they paint Jesus with the pretty hair and the blue eyes, and it's quite gorgeous. And he's knocking on a door, and it was a really nice little print picture. But I was in such a distraught moment, and I can remember getting in front of this picture on my hands and on my knees and praying and begging for help, and making promises and pleading, because that's what I had been taught at the time. And I would approach it so much differently today when I have issues like that.
Mhm.
And I feel the response differently. Actually, I feel a response. And in the past, it was hoping and wishing, and that there'd be a response. And so again, everybody's where they need to be. I don't mean to I speak negatively about that, and I hope it's not taken if someone else is listening. But what a difference that these different philosophies have. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It is intriguing. I don't debate with this group. It doesn't feel right to do that. I strive to peel it back to a common denominator, which I feel fate,
Mhm.
ultimately God is the common denominator.
Yes.
So I'll validate, or usually input, right? Because people will say things and then everybody contributes. I contribute too. whenever I speak, I usually speak with the God consciousness perspective.
Yeah. Very cool.
I probably am the only one that notices it. And that's okay. You know, it's okay. Because when you look at all the different faiths, as we all know, I mean, there are some common denominators,
Yeah,
different ways.
that's very true.
But there is common threads. There are common threads.
So how do things come to us? Have I missed a different description? Would you guys describe it differently or add something to that question?
One of the ways stuff comes to me is when I go off to some kind of a conference. And I always make sure that I have some method of recording, whether that is taking notes on my iPad or on my phone or whatever, but some way to record. Pen and pencil. Generally, I take a journal of some kind, if not more than one. Because as I'm sitting here listening to whoever's talking, that stuff that you get mowing the yard,
Yeah.
downloads.
Oh, yeah.
And I will be listening to somebody talking about church business, blah, 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 blah. And my mind is going, if you did blah, 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 this would work out. And I've just learned to always have pen and paper, because I don't know when I don't do it when I'm driving. I promise I don't. But I don't know when I'm going to get that download. So it's just fascinating when it comes at a time when I am ready, like in the visioning last week.
Yeah.
That was awesome because I had pen and paper ready for that download. I was surprised I got it because it came clear at the anything else part at the end. It was like, oh, okay. But I frequently get wild ideas off topic when I'm listening to someone else lecture.
How interesting. That's fascinating.
I mean, it's like I've opened up my mind. I'm sitting still. I've opened up my mind and then stuff comes. So yeah, I take a pen, a notebook and paper to church.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm not the speaker. Though sometimes when I am the speaker, I'm going, oh, wait, let me make a note of that.
That's excellent.
So that, it's like, okay, I'm not mowing the yard. That's not my thing, but
Very cool.
sometimes airplanes do it too, but not near as often.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta have the distraction of somebody talking.
That's interesting. I usually get my messages first thing in the morning.
Sometimes.
I had this has popped up in my head, and I guess I don't know if I'm supposed to share it, and I feel kind of funny sharing it, but it's like, because it's feels kind of odd. It's the first time it's ever happened. But while I was in the dentist chair this morning, and I think my meditation time is really short, even if it can happen right now because of everything going on in the house. But I still like to step outside, barefoot and look at the sun at least for a minute or two, and I give my gratitude for the downloads and for the light and the frequency and things, all the stuff I do, that cosmic energy stuff, and the sunlight. Sunlight's very good for your eyes, sun gazing, because it brings more vitamin D and stuff in the mornings like that when you can do it. So I do that. And so this morning, I think I had two opportunities to kind of make a statement of being grateful for support and guidance. And so I, end up in this process at the dentist office that was unplanned. And they have to do, of course, a bunch of injections, to numb it. And there were more than I'd ever had at one time. And because she wanted to try a new process where you do low injections, low amounts of Novocaine before you do the heavy stuff that has to go deeper into other parts. And it was really interesting that when it started, all of a sudden I found myself in a different place. As a child, running on the beach. I love beaches, right? So I find myself running on the beach, and I've got these veils or something that I'm kind of waving in the wind, and it's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Well, then as the shots increased, I realized I wasn't alone. There were other small people there. And then it was like we were running together, and it was laughing. They were encouraging me to laugh. And it was just so interesting. And then when the stuff got kind of heavy, one of these it was a little girl, puts her arm around me and sits down next to me, and she says, "Let's look at the sky." And, it's starting to you can see the moon, look at these stars. And she's trying to distract me. And then they do some work, and they realize, the Novocaine's wearing off. So she wants to start doing injections again. Because for God's sake, I was there for like a day. It felt like. And all of a sudden, this little girl is back, and she reaches in and touches my face.
Wow.
While they're injecting me. I mean, she comes over and puts her hands on my face like this. And that actually brought up a memory, because 5 years or so ago, I had to actually have a tooth pulled. It was the very last one on the top. And this particular dentist did a thing, they put you in the chair, and they have to tilt it. You're almost upside down, because he's got to get in there. But he has the nurses put their hands on you and hold you while he does it, which I'd never experienced before. That was the most fascinating thing. But here's this little girl in this image in my head, where all of a sudden she shows up and she puts her hands on my cheeks while they're injecting me.
Oh.
And so, here's this statement, this process. I mean, I'm fascinated by it, but I remind myself every single day that I am never alone, that there is this path, and I don't know what it looks like, but I know, and I have guides and angels, and they're always here, and I am never alone. So I just want to share that experience. I've never had anything like that before. But man, it was wild, and I loved it. And I hope it happens a whole lot more.
Well, I hope you don't have to have 5-hour dental appointments for it to happen.
Yeah, I wanted to show up other ways for other things.
There you
Yes.
go.
Anyway. Okay. Any last words?
Can't think of any.
Okay. I want to bless you both and thank you for being here, and bless those who will watch this again on YouTube when I get it up in the next couple days. But I will pull up this little picture and hope that it shows up. If you like what you hear and like what you see, and you want to continue to join us and support this lovely little channel, you can offer a love donation, and you could text this number 405-337-9739. I'm reading that backwards and upside down, I think. And the word for tonight is peace. So you would just text that number, put the word in and the amount that you would lovingly choose for us, and we would be very grateful. So there you go. Did I read that right? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I love you both, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. And we shall share again next time. And Diane, you will be sharing your wisdom with us on our next meeting, which is July 20th.
Yay. Thank you. What a great discussion and sharing.
Yeah. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
I can't get it. I've got a screen open. There we go.